Hey, everybody, and welcome back. This is the first session of the Cloud Go-to-Market XP event how-tos, and I'm happy you've joined us. I hope you all enjoyed hearing from John and Dylan, and you learned something new. In this session, my good friend Kathleen Archer and I will discuss the importance of executive buy-in and leveraging your relationships with the cloud providers. So without further ado, let's dive in. So Kathleen, you've been with RSA, EMC, and now Dell for 19 years, spanning the product, alliances, BD, and partnerships teams. Certainly, you've seen cloud morph into what it is today. Can you introduce yourself and tell everyone your role and how you're involved in Dell's cloud go-to-market efforts?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, hi, Patrick. How are you? Thank you for inviting me today. I'm excited to talk about our cloud journey. And as you pointed out, I've been here a long time. Yep, 19 years this July. And I've certainly seen the importance of cloud grow here at Dell and with our customers. I'm currently in a business development role here, focused on creating a repeatable and automated program selling our enterprise solutions in the AWS, Azure, and GCP marketplaces.
It's an amazing career thus far, and I want to ask you something to clarify, because when a lot of people think about Dell, and you know where I'm going with this, they imagine your laptop, your monitor, office solutions. Maybe they think about servers, but most people don't think about cloud-ready software. So, can you tell us about this side of Dell that people may not be as familiar with?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. And we get that a lot. When people think of Dell, yeah, they think about their laptops. But Dell has two operating units here, right? Our client side, which is what you've been mentioning, and then the infrastructure solutions group, or you might hear it referred to as ISG, and that's where I sit. ISG consists of our storage, our server, and our data protection solutions. And these are the teams that are building out our cloud ready solutions that customers are asking to purchase via the marketplaces.
Very insightful. Thank you for clarifying that. All right. So today we're here to talk about two things. One, the importance of executive buy-in and leveraging your relationships with the cloud providers. And so many people assume that these are easy things to do, and certainly something everybody should do, but they may not understand its complexity. So can you tell us, from Dell's perspective, what executive buy-in meant to you, and who or what did that entail?
Yeah, sure. So there's no way we would be here today without executive buy in. It has been critical to our success. And my guidance to anyone listening to this session, it's a non starter without it. It's absolutely important to have that top down buy in from leaders across the business at the get go. And I have to believe that this is not only true for large, complex organizations like Dell, but for smaller ones as well.
I totally agree with you. And so what you're telling me is that this is not just a CEO, not a board initiative. You need a little bit more than that. Can you tell me where Dell got started?
Yeah, sure. Well, to be clear, I don't have a regular audience with Michael Dell, but it certainly starts from the top down. I guess in our case, it started one level down. Not surprisingly, this whole journey for us started with sales. But let me take a step back for a second. So, when we first started with the marketplaces, we started with BYOL listing types across the three main hyperscalers. And we did this for our customers so they could easily deploy our solutions in the cloud. And we've been doing that for, I don't know, about 5 years or so now. But in the last year or two, it became pretty evident that this wasn't going to be enough. Our sales teams were having conversations with customers, and these customers were literally telling us, look, the only way we're going to purchase your cloud products is if we can purchase them via the public cloud marketplaces. And if we can't do that, we may have to pick an inferior solution to ours. And the main reason, as I'm sure most people here know, is that majority of customers have huge spend commits with the hyperscalers, and they need to draw down on those commitments or they'll lose them. So third-party solutions like ours help contribute to that commitment. So I guess you could say that customers drove our initial requirements, and then that got the attention of sales, right? We were asked to support this new route to market. And our sales leaders, stress the importance of this not only for our customers, but also for Dell. The market in the space was growing. More and more customers were asking for it, as I just talked about. Our competitors were doing it. So we needed to be at least on an even playing field with them. So all of this went into our business case as to why we needed to support this. We did recognize, though, that it might affect how we sell, and we needed to address this first. A few examples: the decision makers that may be different than the ones we traditionally work with today. So we needed to expand the conversation with our customers. We needed to make sure that our sellers would not be disincentivized to sell through this new go-to-market. That would be just a non-starter. We needed to make sure that we had the right assets and training in place for our customers and our sellers. And we needed to make sure that our systems, our internal systems, supported this new model. And that was a big one for us. So Patrick, that's a long way to answer your question, but it started with sales. Then we just had to figure out how to do it.
No, that's good context. I think everybody will benefit from that advice. So thank you. That's fantastic. And after this session, I think you may have daily meetings with Michael Dell.
I hope not.
So we have definitely heard customers driving requirements for a lot of other ISVs. It's a story we've heard from a number of our customers. And getting sellers aligned is also critical, right? You mentioned to make sure they're aligned and compensated. Compensation neutral strategies at the bare minimum, super key to their growth. So thank you. That was very insightful. Now, how about other leaders? Who is next in alignment with?
Yeah, sure. So just like sales, finance, and operations were two other critical organizations that we needed to have on board. And as a large enterprise, change is hard, right? Investments in making these changes takes time and resources that require top-down support from many different teams to implement. So when we started to dive into this, we found that selling in the marketplace disrupts the traditional quote to cash process that we had in place. So we had to work through a whole host of issues like rev rec for lump sum payments, payments on non-standard terms. How do you handle marketplace fees, getting a PO, or in this case, not getting a PO, credit holds, and on and on. So we needed the support from senior leadership from finance and operations to drive the internal workflow changes necessary to support the new requirements. And, it wasn't easy, and it took a lot of time. And as things change and the marketplace programs themselves evolve, we need to continue to revisit this process. It's really ongoing.
Yeah, that's a lot to unpack. Ongoing for sure. And operational transformation certainly needs executive alignment to move through those challenges before you can start contracting.
Yeah.
Speaking of contracts, legal and tax had to be on your list, no?
Of course. Tax and legal are just as important as the other teams we engage. Nothing here happens without a contract, and there is constant change that requires their ongoing support. We're always dealing with things like modifications to the master agreements that we have in place with the hyperscalers, process changes, expanding channel programs that are being rolled out by the hyperscalers. How do we support various legal entities? We are a global company. We sell under several different legal entities, so we needed to accommodate for that. How do we handle EULAs? How do we sell in different geos? Again, we're a global company, and we want to be able to sell our solutions worldwide. How does specific country laws affect taxation? And what happens when those regulations change? These are just a few of the things that we discuss on a pretty regular basis with these stakeholders. And Patrick, it's worth mentioning that if you don't get this one right, there could be negative consequences for both you and your customer. So ensuring that tax and legal are ingrained into that process early on are all reasons you need their support here.
Yeah, tax and legal conversations are always a blast.
Yep, they are.
No, but on a serious note, I couldn't agree more. The process of unwrapping those legal entities, as you mentioned, the
Mhm.
tax collection process, all doing that across multiple clouds, certainly slow you down, burden your resources, and it's a very necessary step to take. So kudos to you there. So executive alignment, we've covered this and why that buy-in is super
Mhm.
critical for your success. But I want to hear how you're handling this now that you're a few years in, right? You're not new to marketplace anymore. So
Mhm.
can you tell me a little bit more about how you're handling alignment as you go on?
Yeah, sure, of course. So, as important as that initial buy in is, there's always ongoing work that needs to happen well beyond the launch date. This is certainly not a one and done. We've created a team from those functional areas that we've been talking about that meet regularly to strategize around deal execution and how to expand the program. We started with data protection. Those are the first offers that we had in the marketplace, but now there are other teams, our storage teams in particular, within ISG, that are interested in also selling in marketplace, so we need to bring them into the program. So that's ongoing. We've also created an executive steering committee here that also meets on a regular basis. They ensure that we stay on track. We use this time to update them on our progress, and we bring any hurdles that we may have uncovered, to their attention, that we need their help to overcome. And as we've been discussing, at the end of the day, you need to have their continued buy-in, not just at the beginning. You know, I think it's also relevant to point out just how beneficial working with Tackle has been to our success to date. And I know that's not what you asked me to talk about today, but I think it's worth mentioning for a moment, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay, great. So your team has really been instrumental in our success. You've helped us in a number of ways. At the get go, we were able to get that executive buy in and get up and running so much faster than we could have done on our own. And we tried. Trust me when I tell you we tried. And it was hard. You brought in some much needed organizational and institutional knowledge to the process and what it takes to succeed. While we still rely on you for listing management and reporting, Tackle also provides insights into changes that are coming with the hyperscaler programs, understanding market trends, an awareness of new programs or sales plays that the hyperscalers are rolling out. You just brought to my attention today a program with Microsoft that gives us some MDF funds that we need to take advantage of. And then, not to mention answering a variety of questions that we have for you on any given day. So thank you to you and the Tackle team.
Well, thank you. We understand this process is just that. It takes a lot of great partnering to accomplish what you've all done, and we've certainly created and invested in a lot of new services and offerings based on our shared experiences, so that we can also help other ISVs in this journey. But with Dell, this is truly a partnership we value. So thank you, Kathleen. You do not have to say that, but we appreciate it.
No, it's
Um,
a great partnership, and I mean every word of it.
Thank you. Speaking of partnerships, let's dive into the
Mhm.
cloud relationships. So, what's the best practice to manage those that you have today?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think it's a few things, right? We've been talking about how we manage the process internally. We work with Tackle and we have the internal teams, but we also have to have strong relationships with the partnerships with the hyperscalers themselves. We need to make sure that we're utilizing all of the programs that they have in order for us to be successful. So things like participating in their co-sell programs. The hyperscaler reps get paid on these sales, so their reps want to work with you. Taking advantage of the co-marketing opportunities, uh, getting MDF funds that we're entitled to promote our offerings, holding regular QBRs with the cloud partners, participating in joint webinars, et cetera. The more we do with them, the better together story we have.
Spot on. And I saw Paul put a comment in the chat. The better together story. He put hashtag better together, right? So not just us,
Yeah.
but the story that you have with the cloud is the better together story, and that's a strategic motion that we see in all of our successful ISVs. So,
Yeah,
definitely it's not to say it's easy, right? It's a lot to manage, but
it is. Yeah.
are you doing that alone?
No, as they say, it takes a village. It's just way too much work for one or two alliance people to manage. Building out these partnerships, as you mentioned, is an ongoing process, and it requires a lot of different touch points between our companies. We have a global alliance team that is dedicated to working with the hyperscalers on go to market. We have product specific leads that work with the hyperscalers sellers. We have technical teams that work with them on creating new products. We have marketing teams that work with them on go to market. And we have the functional team that I mentioned earlier that works with them on marketplace operations. And lastly, we have executive relationships that we leverage as well.
Incredibly well thought out, Kathleen. Creating dedicated teams, even as going as far as having co-sell titled individuals, those things are absolutely advantageous to your business as you scale. Now, with the last 3 minutes we have here, are there any final comments you'd like to leave us with?
Well, first, thank you for having me today, Patrick. This has been fun. And I hope it's been useful to others who are just starting out. And I'd like to point out the obvious. We're a large company, so you might not have the same complexities that Dell has in order to succeed in this space. But regardless of your size, I think it's fair to say that the process is still pretty similar. Step one, get executive buy in or find an internal champion that will work with you throughout the entire process. Two, leverage a partner like Tackle who has the experience to help you get up and going much faster than you can do on your own. And lastly, cultivate the relationships with the hyperscalers. You are critical to their business as well. And what we do drives consumption for them, and consumption, as we know, is king. Then it's just a matter of repetition and continually to improve on the process. It's as simple as that.
Simple as that. You made it sound easy. Thank you, Kathleen. This has been very insightful. And so to summarize what I heard, one, you said executive buy-in is critical, not just at the top, but for stakeholders across sales, ops, finance, legal, tax, etc.
Yeah.
Two, you said leverage experienced industry partner. Check. Partnerships with the cloud providers need to be multi-layered, right? So not just one alliance person, and those should be ongoing, right? Engaging, building your brand, using the Better Together story and all that with your co-sell motions and your marketplace listings. So I think that covers it, as you said, easy as that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's all the time we have for our chat today. So if anyone watching has questions for Kathleen and I, you can pop over and join us in the how-to lounge. We're going to jump over there for a little bit and you can meet Kathleen, ask any questions you have of us there. You can reach out to us on LinkedIn or you can find us in the Tackle community pages. So thanks again for joining us in today's session. We appreciate you all listening. And Kathleen, thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks, Patrick. Bye-bye. Enjoy the rest of the event.